This is Arb's Chess Endgame course, and today you will learn how to checkmate using the queen. So let's start with the basic checkmate. In this position, how you can checkmate the king in just one move. Okay, technique here, or the pattern that you need to learn, is to check the king in front of the opponent's king. So queen d7, that's a checkmate. Why is it a checkmate? The king has no squares after that. Okay, now a lot of players, beginners, will play something like queen to g8, but the king can still escape on c7. If it happens, that is not a mate. Same with queen h8, the king can still move. There are a lot of checks here. Queen d3 is also a check, but unfortunately the king can still move. It's not a checkmate, right? So every time the king can escape, it's not a checkmate. So the pattern that you need to learn in this position is just put your queen in front of the king. Make it sure that the queen is protected. And that's it. Now let's proceed to another position. So here comes another position. This is checkmate in one move again. You've learned already. Put the queen in front of the king, and that's a mate. But there is also another idea here, or a checkmate pattern idea, is to play queen to b8. That is also a checkmate. The king has no squares. All the squares are covered by your pieces. Okay. Is this a checkmate? Obviously not a checkmate. King can still move, right? What else? Is this a checkmate? Try to calculate. As long as the king can move, is not a checkmate. So all these squares are not a checkmate. Even here on e8. Other players would play queen e8 here, check the king, but actually the king can capture your queen and it's not a checkmate, it's a draw. So I repeat, the checkmate uh, move here is to play queen d7 and queen to b8, and that's a checkmate. Now let's proceed to the next position. In this position, the queen is too far away from the opponent's king, but now look at the pattern. Both of the kings are facing each other. We call this king opposition, and we can checkmate the king here very easy. So just check the king. Queen to a8 is a checkmate, like this. And look at that, the king cannot move forward, right? Because your king covers the squares. That's the advantage if your king facing with opponent's king. Other ideas you can checkmate is to play queen to h8. This is a checkmate. But of course you need to consider also what are the possible checks you could play. Queen to h4. What else? I think these are the only squares that has a check. Okay, but only a8 and h8 is checkmate. Queen to h4 is not a checkmate. That's what I've said. The king can still move. He can escape from that check. So let's proceed to the next example. Here, this is a little bit tricky, but let me remind you that the king is, when the king is in the center, you cannot checkmate the king. But when the king is on the edge, either of these squares, you can checkmate the king. But since the king now is on this uh, rank 8 or 8 rank, you can checkmate the king. But how would you do it? The best technique you could play is to cut off the king. Cut off is a technique or a method that prevents the king from moving forward, or it lessens his pace, like queen b7. So this queen b7, cutting off this uh, rank, the king now cannot move forward. Now his only squares available are only 5 squares. So in this technique, you will save time after the, let's say, king to d8. Now you start to move your king forward. The idea of this is your king will support your queen to checkmate the king, then do the opposition. And after this, I've already shown you how to checkmate the king in just one move, right? So just put the king in front, just put your queen in front the opponent's king, and that's it. Make it sure that your queen is protected. Don't play like you put the queen right away. This is a blunder because the king will just take your queen. That could be a draw. So here, if you play this move king to e8, can you mate in one? There are two ways to checkmate here. One is to put the queen in front of the king. Next is to play queen to c8. Just calculate the possible option for the black king, or it can't move any squares. Okay, and that's it. What about this? The king is on the edge. Can you find how to cut off the king? Pause the video and try to find the best square for the queen to cut off the king. And you're right, queen b7 is cutting off the king. King has to move king to a4. Now you start to move your king. The pattern is do the opposition as long as your king protecting your queen. After this, checkmate in one move. Two ways to checkmate the king. Queen a6, and the easiest checkmate is queen to b4. Checkmate. Others checks is not a checkmate, but there's some checks here. These squares are checks, but all these squares, all these possible squares are not checkmate. Okay, only these squares. Queen to b4 and queen to a6 is a checkmate. Others checks, the king can still escape. But at least you managed to identify all the possible checks. It would improve your uh, calculation skills. Here comes the most challenging part when the king is in the center, and this is the main topic of this video. Now the idea of this is we need to cut off the king again. We need to drive him on the edge by cutting off the king. Cutting off the king, we have an option queen to f3 or queen to h3. But I would like you to apply queen to f3 ideas, having this knight shape technique. Now the king has a lot of options to move. He has 3 squares available. Now just copy the king, how it moves. If he moves backward, look at the arrow, then just follow. If he moves like this, just follow how the king moves, right? Okay, and look at that, it works. And when the king play like this, now the king is in the edge. Now you can play queen to f7. Now the queen cutting off the king. It's time to move the king this time. And the black king has no option. Waiting for his death. Now checkmate the king in one move. Yes, queen to b7 is a checkmate, right? Very easy. Let's. What about other ways to defend? Play this move. Just copy here. If he keeps playing like this, just copy. Now be focused. If the king now moves on the edge, no need to copy. Okay, just cut off the king right away and apply the basics. Use the king because we're gonna use the king to support our queen to checkmate. And this is checkmate in one move. Can you find it? Yes, queen b7 is a checkmate. That is how to checkmate the king. But there's an exception in this technique. For instance, queen to f3. What you need to avoid if the king will move to the corner. Right, so this is the best defense for black. Now you need to avoid cutting off the king in an L-shaped manner, because if you play this, we have this position is called stalemate. A stalemate is a position where the opponent has no legal move and it's not a check, so it could lead to a draw. The king has no squares. Here, is this stalemate? Yes, this is also a stalemate. So in this case, just play any move as long as the king has some space. You can play something like queen d7 or queen e7 or either queen to b4 as long as the king has some space. So let's apply this move. Then again move your king up, and that's how it's done. Very easy. Just know the pattern and apply it. This technique also avoid possible stalemate and checkmate in one move. So how many squares do you think to checkmate the king? One. This is checkmate. This is also a checkmate. Queen to c8, queen d8, queen e8 are checkmates. Other checks are not checkmate. The orange squares are not checkmate. So it's important also to count all the possible checks and try to calculate what do you think would be the defense for the black king. Okay, possible variations. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something from this course, and in the future subscribe to my channel for future other endgame course. So we're gonna learn step by step until we're gonna go for the advanced endgame. So this is Coach Arbs, and have a good day.